All right, let's go ahead and get into it. Welcome to Poke the Bear Live and Uncut. Obviously, as you saw, today is our special edition live show. We have some dope stuff that we're going to go into for today. It is Friday, July 16th, 2021. And as I said, this is live and uncut. So this is where I shoot straight from the hip, react to current boxing news and updates. There's a lot to talk about. Today, we're going to focus on one very important subject to the sport of boxing, that being the Tyson Fury versus Deontay Wilder trilogy fight that was scheduled to take place on July 24th at Las Vegas's T-Mobile Arena. If you don't know, that fight has now since been postponed due to what we're going to talk about today, which is Tyson Fury's COVID-19 contraction. If you do enjoy the content, please do make sure that you like and subscribe and share the content. We're constantly looking to grow the channel and bring you the best high quality content as possible. If you don't know, we do feature music on the show as well. So if you or someone you know has music that you'd like to be featured, email us at the link in the description. And also feel free to follow us on our social media, Instagram at pokethebear_boxing and on Twitter at pokethebear15. So we got a lot to talk about. Today, we're going over the full investigation that I put together to try to figure out and get to the bottom of what's really going on with Tyson Fury and Deontay Wilder. So we here on the channel, we put together a full investigation, and we're going to try and cover a sequence of events that I believe paints a picture, and you pretty much can be the jury. You can decide what you believe happened as a result of all of these things, right? But I want you for a second to just travel with me and think back, right? So the date is June 15th, right? So a month and 1 day ago, 31 days ago, prior to this video, Tyson Fury and Deontay Wilder, they are squaring off for the first time. They're seeing each other for the first time since their fight, their second fight on February 22nd, 2020. So this is the first time that they're squaring off and they're seeing each other. Now, in that fight, in the second fight, Fury beats Deontay Wilder by 7th round TKO. We were all excited for the third fight because of how the second fight ended. We saw Fury knocked down in the first fight 2 times, and now we see that Fury stops Wilder in the second fight. So we're excited for this third one. In their official press conference to announce the fight, and you can kind of see the video here, Tyson Fury he's up to his usual antics, and Deontay Wilder is curiously quiet. He's eerily quiet in this one. He's not speaking to Fury or to members of the media. And we're going to talk about that because the media painted several pictures about Wilder because of his silence. But while Wilder was curiously quiet, I'm emphasizing on those members of the media. Deontay did not speak to those members of the media. And I say that because contrary to what they wrote about him, Deontay Wilder was not silent. He's been speaking, just not to them. And maybe for good reason. He knew that many of them were going to side with Fury. And why speak to the very people who you know are going to build a narrative against you, a narrative opposing you? And he was not wrong. After this press conference, Deontay Wilder has a ton of articles written about him and analysts who are saying he's afraid of Fury, his mind isn't right, that's why he's remaining quiet, and maybe he doesn't want the fight, maybe he's not ready for the pressure of the moment. That's what one of my favorite fighters of all time, unfortunately, Andre Ward, that's what he had to say about it, where maybe Wilder's crumbling under it and he calls himself a king, but he's not built for this moment. And so they believe that Deontay's silence was evidence of his fear or not being prepared for Tyson Fury. And that is ironic because it's Deontay who was looking forward to this fight the most. And I believe that I'm looking at the same evidence you guys are looking at. And the conclusion I came to was that I don't think Tyson Fury was prepared for this fight. I don't think that Tyson Fury wanted this fight at this time with Deontay Wilder. And where the media was painting a picture that Wilder was the one who didn't look ready, the evidence points to the contrary. The evidence contradicts what the media has been writing about Deontay Wilder and Tyson Fury. And I'd be fine with the stories they're writing about Wilder if they gave Tyson Fury the exact same treatment. And that's exactly what today's special edition live show is about. Now, just in all fairness, the goal of this channel is to be as objective as possible, right? And my goal is to point out contradictions and inconsistencies that I personally feel threaten the integrity of the sport. And I'm not afraid to be called out. And if there's something that I'm missing, point it out, because I want boxing to succeed. Boxing has a history of being a corrupt sport. Boxing has a history of just so many different things that cause people to fall out of love with the sport, just out of there not being fairness and things like that, whether it be judging, whether it be refereeing, whether it be promotion and management. It can be splintered, and there can be a lot of division in the sport. And so just hoping that with this channel, we can continue to be as objective as possible. You see here in the Deontay Wilder and Tyson Fury face-off, they had a long and awkward face-off. Not a word was said for 5 minutes. Deontay Wilder staring Tyson Fury down, and it got serious. No one wanted to get in between them, and I was someone who was very excited for this fight, as were plenty of other fans. And so you see here, everyone's coming around. They're about to try to separate the fighters, but they are not moving. So when this fight does happen, it seems it's going to be scheduled for October 9th. We are going to have a fight on our hands. I believe that we're going to see a great Tyson Fury with the sparring he was doing. And I believe we're going to see a great boxing exhibition by Tyson Fury. I believe we're going to see the best Deontay Wilder maybe we've ever seen. And I can't express how excited I am for this fight. So here's how this video is going to work. I am going to lay out a timeline of 10 separate dates. And we're going to lay it out. And these are going to be 10 events that I believe serve as evidence that Tyson Fury purposefully pulled out of the Deontay Wilder fight for reasons outside of the Rona. And in the end, you be the jury and you come to your own conclusion based on the evidence. But we're going to take it step by step here. So let's get going. So in our series of events, from this moment, not this moment, but from their second fight where Tyson Fury stops Deontay Wilder. Now, there's a lot of, controversy, surrounding it in terms of whether there's tampering or anything like that. We don't have a legal ruling right now on that. So based on what we saw, Tyson Fury beat the brakes off Deontay Wilder in the second fight. I was concerned for Wilder. I thought, based on what I saw in the moment, Mark Breland, his coach, great man from Brooklyn, I believe that Mark Breland did the right thing and maybe saved Deontay Wilder's life by throwing in the towel. Because he threw in the towel, now there's able to be a third fight. You get what I'm saying? Because if Wilder was hurt too badly, let's say that Mark never threw in the towel, Tyson knocks out Wilder, and I don't believe that Wilder gets this third fight. I'm not sure that he does. And so the second fight ends and they both go their separate ways. Now, here's what happens next in the sequence of events. Let's go ahead and pull it up. ESPN does an interview with Tyson Fury, and there's a bunch of chatter going around in the boxing world in the spring, a few months ago, of 2021 about Tyson Fury possibly fighting Anthony Joshua. Now, Anthony Joshua and Tyson Fury are both megastars. They're from the same country in the UK. The UK has some of the world's best boxing fans, or most loyal boxing fans, Sometimes they can be delusional, just real talk. But they support their fighters. Tyson Fury and Anthony Joshua were on the collision course. I believe no matter what, they still are, because Tyson, Deontay, and Anthony are three sides of the heavyweight triangle. And so we want to see the three of them fight. It's time for Fury and AJ to fight. They start to push that narrative. The promoters, Bob Arum and Eddie Hearn, ESPN, Matchroom, they all began to push a narrative that Tyson Fury and Deontay Wilder that Tyson Fury and Anthony Joshua are going to unify the belts for an undisputed heavyweight champion of the world. Now, the issue with that is that Deontay Wilder, because Mark Breland stopped the fight, Deontay Wilder is still healthy and things like that. Deontay had a rematch clause in their contract, with which most champions do. In his contract, it clearly states that Deontay Wilder is entitled to a rematch if he loses his belt, which most champions are. That clause was in their contract. So Deontay is working on that behind the scenes, but he has to take care of it in court because Fury's team does not want that fight to happen. They don't want a third fight. They're trying to move on and fight AJ, but Deontay is legally entitled to that fight. ESPN begins to push this narrative. This is the article here. This article is from March 15th of this year. ESPN, Mark Kriegel, who has a good boxing mind, he says Tyson Fury and Anthony Joshua sign a 2-fight deal to unify the heavyweight titles. Now, why is that a big deal that he's writing this? That's a big deal because Tyson Fury can't sign a contract to fight Anthony Joshua if he still has unfinished business with Deontay Wilder. Legally, Wilder is entitled to a rematch. Everyone knew Wilder wanted this rematch. They did not want to give him one. And I believe that that is messed up, because when Tyson Fury was irrelevant and on the fringes and in the shadow realm of the boxing world, no one was looking for him. He was fighting no-name opponents, and he was coming from obesity, drug abuse, and being kicked out of boxing pretty much. It was Deontay Wilder who gave Tyson Fury relevance again in the sport. Deontay gave him a shot, and Deontay was giving so much respect to Tyson Fury when they were first preparing for the first fight. Deontay said, yo, I'm going to give him a chance. Nobody else is, blah, 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 blah. And they built a mega fight between each other when Tyson was irrelevant. Tyson goes ahead and wins the belt. Deontay is entitled to a rematch, but Tyson's not willing to give him one in his team. That's kind of jacked up, especially when Deontay is legally entitled to said rematch. And so Deontay ends up having to take it to court. But you see Tyson Fury's team is here promoting a fight with Anthony Joshua, and it says that they sign a 2-fight deal to unify the titles, right? Now, what is next in our timeline? While that arbitration between Deontay's team and Tyson Fury's team is taking place behind closed doors, Tyson Fury's team continues to talk to Anthony Joshua's team. They're telling the world and they're telling each other that they're going to fight. They're putting money into promotion and securing venues and dates and all these things. Next thing that happens, Deontay Wilder, right? This is 2 months and 2 days later. So from March 15th to May 17th, you see here Deontay Wilder wins the arbitration against Tyson Fury. So the arbitrator, which is the judge, so this is pretty much a court case that's happening behind closed doors. The arbitrator, the judge, rules in favor of Deontay Wilder. Congrats to Wilder for winning this case, but it should not have gone to a court case. Tyson Fury should have honored what was already in the contract. Arbitrator rules Deontay Wilder entitled to third fight with Tyson Fury. This is a big deal, right? So you see here this article written by Mike Coppinger, who was writing for The Athletic here. He currently writes and works for ESPN. Daniel Weinstein, the judge, the arbitrator presiding over the Tyson Fury-Deontay Wilder rematch dispute, ruled Monday that Wilder is entitled to a third fight with Fury, sources tell The Athletic's Mike Coppinger. The ruling, first reported by the Daily Star, ends an arbitration process, which is, a case that started in February. It included depositions from Fury and Wilder, along with executives from Top Rank, which represent Fury's team and ESPN, and Premier Boxing Champions. Wilder's management group led by Al Heyman, who's a legend in entertainment. The decision comes one day after Fury announces that a deal was struck for an undisputed heavyweight championship with Anthony Joshua on August 14th in Saudi Arabia, the biggest fight that can be made in all of boxing. I don't know about that. I think Deontay Wilder and Anthony Joshua is a bigger fight. I also think that Errol Spence and Terence Crawford is also just as big a fight. But that's not what we're disputing here. That's a separate conversation. The decision, so you see here, the decision that the judge ruled in favor of Wilder comes one day after Fury announces that a deal was struck for an undisputed heavyweight championship with Anthony Joshua. Why am I mentioning that? Because it seems the judge made the decision one day after Tyson's announcing his AJ fight. There's a chance that the judge ruled it as disrespect, and you're undermining the judge who's overseeing this case and presiding over this case, and you're gonna go and tell the world you signed a contract behind the judge's back. So pretty much the judge is saying one thing and you're just going and doing another. I'm pretty sure that played into the judge's decision, saying, you know what, Wilder, it was already in the contract, but now you're undermining me and my authority. Wilder wins arbitration. And the judge rules that the Fury-Wilder fight must happen before September 15th. So they go ahead and they make this fight, right, for the trilogy fight for Deontay Wilder and Tyson Fury. It's supposed to take place July 24th, 2021. So this year, right? And, and we're excited for that fight, but I don't know that Tyson Fury was 100% ready for Deontay Wilder because he was focusing on Anthony Joshua, which is, again, is just jacked up because when Fury was irrelevant, Deontay brought him back into the sport. Wilder played a huge role because AJ was not looking for Tyson Fury, right? Okay, let's go ahead and continue moving forward in our investigation. So we see step one, ESPN and the promoters are pushing a narrative that Tyson Fury and AJ are going to sign this contract, right? Soon after, Wilder wins the arbitration. The judge rules that he is entitled to the third fight. Now, after that happens, about a week and a half later, so 11 days after that moment, Tyson Fury's own father, Big John Fury, Big John Fury has an interview. So Tyson's own father has an interview where he lists and mentions that he is concerned for his son, right? He's telling his son that Deontay Wilder is too dangerous of an opponent for you to just jump into a fight with, which I find funny because they continue to paint the narrative that Deontay Wilder is this bum, he can't fight, all these things. But now you're saying that if he's such a bum, take the fight. You had ample time when the judge ruled in favor of Wilder. You had enough time to have a full camp and get this third fight. Big John Fury in this interview, right, it says here, he warned against his son against complacency with the third fight with Deontay Wilder. So what he's saying is that Tyson Fury was not focused, that Tyson Fury was out partying, that Tyson Fury was getting complacent with the belt, which he has a history of doing. If you know boxing, you know that in 2015, Tyson Fury won his championships initially from Vladimir Klitschko, who Tyson Fury beat in a 12-round decision. Now, when Fury won his belts, he lost them. Not in a fight, but against an opponent, but in a fight against himself. Tyson Fury began to do drugs. He began to do hard drugs like cocaine and whatnot. He began to overeat, and he took the fame and fortune that comes with being the heavyweight champion of the world. He did not take it seriously, and he began to lose his fame, lose his fortune, and almost lose his life. He began to destroy himself from the inside out. And his father is warning him against that right now. You just won the fight against Deontay Wilder, the second fight, and now you signed a contract with Deontay Wilder, but his father's saying you're not focused. So much so that to the point where his father is saying, no, don't even fight him. Even though the judge ruled in favor of Wilder, give up the belts. Give them to Wilder, throw him in the trash, let him have it. You go fight Anthony Joshua. Now, his father is saying that he is concerned. We already know that Fury was not focused on Wilder. He's focused on AJ, and he's talking about how he's out drinking, 12 pints of beer and all this stuff. Fury's not focused on fighting. If he's focused on fighting, he's thinking about Anthony Joshua, right? And now his father is saying, you're not focused. Do not fight Deontay Wilder. The judge rules that the fight has to happen. Fury and Wilder signed contracts to fight, and we're all ready because the fight is announced again for July 24th, which would have been, 8 days? 8 days from today. That would have been 8 days from today. And so we have Tyson's own father saying, do not go forward with this fight, right? Big John Fury on Tyson Fury fighting Wilder after AJ deal collapsed, right? So watch the interview in your own time. I'm not going to play it. I don't want to get flagged or anything like that. But this was an interview that went down. His dad is a he seems to be a good dude. And he's pretty much speaking sense into his son. But you owed Wilder a fight. You owed him a trilogy fight. And it's no one's fault, Tyson, but your own that you weren't taking it seriously. And when a judge announces it, you're choosing not to take the fight seriously. So I want to remind you that the whole purpose of the evidence I'm laying out here is to show you that Tyson Fury pulled out of this Wilder fight for reasons outside of the Rona, right? And that's why we're going forward with this investigation, right? We want to get to the bottom of it. Next up, it's officially announced on June 15th that Wilder and Fury, they have a fight, and it's going to go down in Vegas, right? You see, I'm going to show you some more evidence here. Mike Coppinger, right? He's talking about the judge ruling in favor of the Fury-Wilder fight. So Daniel Weinstein is the judge, right? Ruled in favor of Wilder today, saying Fury owes Wilder a third fight. Fury and Wilder signed a 2-fight deal, but there's a disagreement over the rematch clause. And so with all of that happening, right, the fight is officially announced, right? We're all excited for it. It's like, hey, we understand that Tyson wants to fight AJ, but Wilder also has been calling out AJ for years. We've wanted to see Wilder and AJ since 2016, and they weren't pushing for that fight. And I'm talking about AJ's side. Wilder has been trying and trying and trying, and AJ put him through hell in terms of negotiations and just was not giving Wilder a fair shake. So on June 15th, the fight is announced. And just to show you where we are on our timeline, right? So you have March, April, May. So 3 months has passed since the ESPN interview where they're pushing this narrative of Fury AJ. Wilder wins the arbitration. This is in May. About a week and a half after that, Fury's dad mentions that he's concerned. And now the fight is officially announced. There's a press conference. And this is what I was talking about earlier. Wilder is silent. The media takes it and runs with it, says there's something wrong with him because he's silent in a press conference. He wasn't silent. He just chose not to answer your questions. He did answer questions, just not yours. He answered questions of other members of the media. And then he gave his opening remarks of what he planned to do with the fight, etc. But he wasn't here to listen to those members of the media or Tyson Fury. And I believe that Wilder was basically saying like, yo, there's nothing left to say. I'm not here to answer any questions. I want to get in the ring and fight. And that's what it's all about in boxing, right? After that, on the exact same day, irony, on the same day as the fight is announced and they face off, right? Everyone's in front of the media. Bob Arum, Tyson Fury's promoter, the old man here, top right-hand corner. Bob Arum is doing interviews. And in an interview, he mentions that Tyson Fury is fully vaccinated. He says Tyson Fury is 100% vaccinated. If you don't believe me, don't worry. I'm going to show you the clip. But let me first show you the interview. I'm not gonna play. I'm gonna play the audio so that you can hear it. But this is what was going down. So one sec. Let me gather that data for you. Wow. I thought it was nuts. Let's take a look. And we are 2-4. Okay. So we have Tyson Fury's own promoter, Bob Arum, works along with ESPN. They have a deal with Top Rank Promotions and ESPN doing a promotional deal. So Top Rank fighters fight on ESPN. Bob Arum is a legendary promoter. He's, I think, 89 years old. He's been in the business forever, and he represents Tyson Fury. So this is an interview that he's doing after the Fury Wilder 3 press conference. And I'm going to roll the clip so that you guys can see here. He's talking about another fighter who that day it was announced that he, being Teofimo Lopez, tested positive for COVID.
Sure, he didn't get the COVID. but again, it's really, and look, let me tell you something. We tell all our fighters, you guys are fighting for big money, and promoters are laying out big money. Get yourself vaccinated so you don't contact the COVID. Now, you take the two fighters here. Fury is totally vaccinated, and I talked with Shelly Finkel a little while ago, and he said that Wilder's been fully vaccinated, and their corners have been vaccinated. That's taking responsibility.
Now listen,
now, Teofimo,
hold on. So you just heard it, right? You just heard him say that Fury's been fully vaccinated, Wilder's been fully vaccinated. Fury's been fully vaccinated, Wilder's been fully vaccinated. This was, follow the dates, this was on June 15th, 2021, 31 days ago. This was 31 days ago. Bob Arum is here in an interview calling out one fighter, saying you should be fully vaccinated, and saying Fury's fully vaccinated, Wilder's fully vaccinated. Don't worry, I know you may have already forgotten it a little bit. I'm going to run it back just so that, again, the goal is for you to come up with your own conclusion based on the evidence here.
Self-vaccinated so you don't contact the COVID. Now, you take the two fighters here. Fury is totally vaccinated, and I talked with Shelly Finkel a little while ago, and he said that Wilder's been fully vaccinated, and their corners have been vaccinated. That's taking responsibility. Now, Teofimo, you know, he was off with this Triller thing.
Listen. Linda, listen. We just had Bob Arum here say this man on the screen, Tyson Fury, is fully vaccinated, right? And this was on June 15th. I almost don't even need to go any further, right? Because you see where it's going, right? And we're going to keep tracing it from beginning to end. ESPN pushes the narrative, right? They put out the article, Tyson Fury and AJ sign a 2-fight deal. Pretty much it's illegal because you can't do that while you're in contract to fight another fighter. Behind closed doors, court case, arbitration. Deontay Wilder wins that arbitration. The fight needs to happen before September 15th. Fury's dad goes on to say, even though Wilder won the arbitration, Fury should not fight him. Give up the belt. Give up your championship. Throw it in the trash. This is what he's saying verbatim. Let him have it, rather than you go into this fight unfocused. The fight is announced. Wilder looks locked in this press conference. It's like, oh boy. Whew. He looks like he's ready to quite literally take off Fury's head. On the same day of this press conference, Bob Arum goes on to say what I just showed you guys. Fury has been fully vaccinated. Now, what is next in our investigation? The next piece of evidence that I would like to bring to the table is about 2.5 weeks after, actually pretty much just 2 weeks after this moment, where he says that Fury is fully vaccinated. Fury and Wilder are in camp. They're in training camp preparing to fight one another. While they're in camp, obviously they're getting in shape, getting their minds and body right. You're training, you're working out, you're sparring, right? You're getting ready to fight a huge fight against one another. You need to be prepared. Bob Arum goes on to say that Fury is getting hell in sparring. This was on July 2nd. All of it is going to make sense here. On July 2nd, Bob Arum, this is a Boxing Scene article, shout out to them. Bob Arum says that Fury's sparring partners, in this case, first of all, Fury was sparring two heavyweight contenders. I believe they're both undefeated. That being Jared Big Baby Anderson and Efe Ajagba. So there are two heavyweight contenders. Both are knockout artists. Efe Ajagba, Jared Anderson. They're newer, kind of newer in the heavyweight scene in terms of the casual fan getting to know who they are. And they are knockout artists, and they were also scheduled to fight on the same event, on the same card as Fury and Wilder. So what a great way for you all to be prepared for you to spar one another. So Fury sparring them in camp. And Bob Arum goes on to say that Fury is getting hell in sparring. And then word gets out that Fury is getting beat up. Fury, who was not prepared, Fury, who was unfocused, Fury, who was focused on AJ, Fury, who was drinking 12 pints of beer a day, Fury, whose own dad said, don't fight Wilder, you're not focused. Fury goes into camp, and his sparring partners, who were also fighting that same day on July 24th, they're taking it seriously. And they start giving Fury hell in sparring. They start beating on him. Interviews leak where Fury has bruises on his cheeks, eyes, eyebrows, and busted lips. And he's talking in interviews, and it's like, oh, they really are giving him hell in sparring. And let me tell you a little secret in the sport of boxing. If and when word gets out that you were getting hurt in sparring, your opponents lock in on that. They're like, Andre Ward, when he fought Chad Dawson, he goes on to say he knew that he beat Chad Dawson because word got out that Dawson got beat up and I think knocked out in sparring. In the press conference, at the weigh-in, Andre Ward whispers in his ear and says, I heard what happened in that gym. And he said Chad Dawson deflated. And he knew in that moment, Andre Ward knew that he won that fight in that moment. Well, it's crazy because word is getting out that Fury is getting beat up in sparring by Jared Anderson and Efe Ajagba. Not surprising because, like I said, they're knockout artists. And so Fury also, right, word is getting out he wasn't focused. So he's not focused, not prepared, goes into camp, starts getting worked in camp. Here's what Bob Arum had to say. The article says, Arum is pushing the 21-year-old Anderson as the future king of the weight class, the heavyweight division, and says the young boxer is providing Fury with the necessary work to keep him sharp. Arum says, we have a guy who Tyson tells me, and a lot of people tell me, will be the next great heavyweight champion. Arum told Sky Sports about Jared Anderson. The kid had 9 fights now. Talk to Tyson. He gives Tyson hell when they work out. He's a great sparring partner. Tyson said to me after the Wilder fight that he attributes a great deal of his success to sparring with Anderson. So Fury is saying that Anderson is a phenomenal sparring partner. That means that a person is working you. And if you're coming in to a fight, it's a training camp, and you're not ready, those sparring partners will check you. You better come ready. And so word gets out that Fury is getting beat up. He's getting hell in sparring. I believe, based on what I saw in his face, I believe based on his dad being concerned about him not being focused, and his dad knows him intimately, I believe the fact that he was focused on another fight, and the fact that Anderson was focused on his fight this night, July 24th, I believe Anderson was focused, but Fury wasn't. And I believe that Fury was really getting hell in sparring. Next, we have Mike Coppinger, who announces here, he writes on Twitter. Now, he wrote this yesterday, but he's giving us a timeline saying, Tyson Fury was tested for the Rona on July 5th, right? And that he tests positive on July 6th. Here is the actual tweet. Sources. Tyson Fury was tested for the Rona on July 5th and received the positive result the following day. That being July 6th, Fury tested positive. He had the first vaccine shot, but not the second. So Arum said that Fury was fully vaccinated. But now word gets out that he wasn't fully vaccinated. He only received the first shot, but not the second. Of course, Arum goes on to say, I thought it was Johnson & Johnson. Well, I hoped. So if you hoped, what are you speaking about? Why are you speaking with so much certainty? Why are you coming down on Teofimo Lopez? Give Tyson Fury that exact same treatment is what I'm talking about. Give Fury the same treatment, the same way you told Lopez, be professional, all this stuff. Why haven't you said the same thing to Tyson Fury, right? Make it objective. The rules have to go both ways, right? And so he had the first vaccine shot, but not the second, and experienced mild symptoms. Now, I got a couple things that I want to mention about that, but I'm going to come back to that in a second, right? 2 days later, word gets out that Fury has the Rona, right? And so for me, Bleacher Report broke the news for me. Not sure how you heard it, but Bleacher Report was one of the first people to announce this, right? Report. Tyson Fury versus Deontay Wilder fight in jeopardy due to COVID-19 outbreak. The heavily anticipated bout between Tyson Fury and Deontay Wilder could be postponed because of a COVID-19 outbreak in Fury's camp, according to Mike Coppinger of ESPN. The third fight between the two heavyweights is currently scheduled to take place July 24th, T-Mobile Arena. Lance Pugmire on his Twitter says, Top Rank responds to the COVID outbreak in Fury's camp. We continue to monitor the health status of Tyson and his team, and the status of the event has not changed to date. But it has, hasn't it? Coppinger reported the bout could be postponed to September so it doesn't interfere with the Pacquiao-Spence fight, which is in August. The battle was already a long time in the making as Wilder only exercised his right to a third fight after multiple delays because of the COVID-19 pandemic. Though Fury and his team thought the rematch clause had expired, this is crazy to me because it's almost like they were looking forward to the rematch clause expiring, which just goes to show you just the shady nature of how they're working, because it's like this dude gave you a shot, and if you're supposed to really be the heavyweight champion of the world, and if Wilder is accusing you of cheating and all these things, then why don't you say, you know what, I'm going to beat you fair and square. Let's do it again. I'll beat you 10 times out of 10. People believe that, come on, man, it's too many coincidences to be a coincidence anymore. How many coincidences have to happen in order to rule out the chance of a coincidence anymore? Do you get what I'm saying? Right? And so they were hoping that the joint expired. They were hoping that the rematch clause expired. Is distasteful, man. And there's no honor in that. You're supposed to be a heavyweight champion of the world, right? They thought it had expired. Let me go back to this article here. An arbitrator eventually ruled that the upcoming bout would have to take place ahead of Fury's potential matchup with AJ. Fury announced the Joshua fight the day before the arbitrator's decision, which we talk about, that may have played into the arbitrator's decision. Fury and Wilder faced each other in 2018 in a match that controversially ended in a draw. In 2020, they had a rematch. Fury settled it with a 7th round TKO. Third match could help settle the WBC heavyweight title, but the latest news could create another delay. Promoters would do their best to ensure the match takes place at some point, especially considering the 2020 version set a record for largest gate ever at a Nevada heavyweight competition at $16.9 million. That means that live gate means people who showed up at the fight. The fans who showed up at the fight paid a total of $16.9 million, right? So that's just money that was made at the live gate. So it's not like there's no money in a fight against Wilder. There's danger in a fight against Wilder, and Fury's team knows that, right? So word got out that Fury tested positive for COVID-19, right? That was on July 8th, 2 days after he tests positive for it. And what's that? 6 days after, it's reported that he's getting worked in sparring. Next, right? Back to the Coppinger tweet, right? So in this exact same tweet, you see here, Mike Coppinger, now he tweeted this, I believe, yesterday or the day before, that Tyson tested negative this past Tuesday and was cleared by doctors to travel shortly after. That he tested negative. He tested negative. He tested negative, which means he was tested again and he was cleared of COVID-19. This was on July 13th. Why does this matter? Because if you look 2 photos over, he tests positive on the 6th. 7 days later, he tests negative on the 13th, which means the fight didn't need to be postponed. It didn't need to be postponed. It didn't need to be postponed. He tests negative on the 13th, and I thought it was all too convenient that you moved this gigantic fight. It was supposed to be the fight of the summer. You know, thank God for Manny Pacquiao fighting Errol Spence to carry the sport for the summer. But you were supposed to have the heavyweight matchup to pretty much, this fight was bringing boxing back after COVID. This was the fight that was getting people's attention back on the sport. And he tests negative on the 13th, right? And he's already getting worked in sparring. I thought it was all too convenient, right? He tested negative this past Tuesday and was cleared by doctors for travel shortly after. Now let's push it. Let's keep going. And then soon after that, Tyson Fury is spotted twice in Las Vegas, right? He's spotted twice in Vegas, and fans they're hyped. You know, fans are seeing him walk around Las Vegas, and they're taking pictures with him. And let me paint the picture for you. Let me help explain what I'm talking about. And this is the picture, bottom right-hand corner. That's the fan who posted the picture on Twitter, who's just like, hey, Fury, thanks, man, for the photo and all this stuff. Got a chance to meet the champ. And you ever see someone who's not taking care of their responsibilities, and then you see them out doing something, and you're like, like, let's say someone is sick, like someone stayed home from school, and it's like, wait, I thought you were sick. I thought you had this going on. I thought you had that going on. And it turns out that this dude is walking around looking just fine. Don't worry, I'm about to show you guys the actual image right here. Just wait on it. I'm gonna show you both images of him in Vegas. So he tests negative on the 13th, and on the 14th, he's spotted twice in Vegas walking around doing regular stuff. So the first one is this fan here. So look at this. Word up to @ChrisMatz. So he is the fan saying the world champ is in the building out here in Vegas at Tyson Fury. So Fury's fine walking around the casinos, right? Chilling in Vegas. And it's like, yo, didn't you just have responsibilities? Weren't you supposed to be in a mega fight this summer? And now you're just walking around casinos. Now you're just walking around car dealerships and things like that. I thought you were sick. Like Dave Chappelle was like, I thought you were sick. You get stronger every time I see you, right? Like you here walking around Vegas. Meanwhile, Wilder is focusing on trying to sleep you, and you're not focused at all. And this is exactly what his pops was talking about, right? My son is not focused, right? And look at this. Look at the comments, man. This comment right here. If he's in America, they could have completely different rules. So when you're famous, you don't have to quarantine with COVID. It's like, yeah, I thought that this dude I thought you were sick. I thought you had the Rona and it was so bad that there was outbreaking in camp and you had to fly home and flee to the UK. But you can't take care of business on July 24th. You know how many fighters? Come on, man. Michael Jordan played with the flu. How many fighters fight through injuries and things like that where things don't go well in their camp and all of that? And you get the Rona, you test positive for like a day or so, We'll call it a week. You test positive for a week, and then you shut the whole fight down. I can't fight. I'm sick. We supposed to feel sorry for you. And this is the same stuff that Ryan Garcia did, man, where he's pulling out of his fight because of anxiety. Then don't fight. And what I'm saying is, like, then don't ask to be at a certain level and then ask people to feel bad for you because of the responsibilities that come at that level. I'd feel bad for you if tons of other people didn't do it before you. I'm not saying that those pressures don't exist, but for Ryan in particular, nothing wrong with you having to take care of your mental health issues. I want you to do that. You need to do that, right? The people around you need you to do that. Don't do it and then talk smack. Don't do it and ask us to feel bad for you. And then on the other end, as Dennis Mama's boy Douglin would say, don't talk smack. And don't ask us to feel sorry for you and then talk spicy. Don't talk spicy, right? You want us to feel bad for you. Same thing happened with Tyson Fury. It's like you come down with COVID, all the fans are like, oh, get well, champ. Oh, get well, champ. But the real fan, like people who's really looking into it is like, man, nah, there's something up. There's something up. It's something fishy. He didn't want this fight in the first place. COVID was all too convenient of an excuse. This was just one image of him. This was him in a casino. And then the funny thing was he was also spotted. This was a picture taken by, I think, the owner of this car dealership, Royalty Exotic Cars. They put this on IG, right? The champ is here, right? I'm trying to scroll, but whatever. The point is, this is on IG, and this was 2 days ago, right? And he's spotted out picking up Royalty cars and all this stuff. So he don't got to flee back to the UK. He don't need to run to recovery. The dude is doing just fine. And he's hanging out with people with no mask on. How bad is the COVID? How bad is the COVID? He's hanging out with people with no mask on. He's going to buy cars, no mask. He's supposed to, I'm on my deathbed. Tell my family I love them, right? And then at the same time, you out buying luxury cars, no mask, right? You out hanging out in casinos, no quarantine. You out hugging on fans, no social distance. How sick are you really is what I'm saying. You want people to feel bad for you. I just can't see it. I just can't see it. It's too many coincidences at this point to be a coincidence anymore. And I really want to raise the question to fans, like, man, how many times does something have to happen for you to realize? By the way, do like and subscribe. Follow us also on social media. How many times does something have to happen before it's a coincidence anymore? That's the question of the day, right? And based on the evidence that I showed you guys, right? ESPN is pushing the narrative. The world is expecting a fight between Fury and AJ, although Wilder is entitled to a fight. Fury's barely focused on AJ, definitely not focused on Wilder. He's promoting that he's going to fight AJ, and so are the promoters. Wilder wins the arbitration behind closed doors. He's entitled to a rematch. Fury's dad is saying, whatever you do, don't take that trilogy fight. Don't do the third fight with Deontay Wilder. It's too dangerous. You're not ready. You're not focused. Throw the belt in the trash or just give it to Wilder, which I'm like, fine, give it up to Wilder because he's focused. And he's only been talking about another fight with you since y'all last fought. The fight is announced. They had the press conference. Media saying that Wilder is the one who's not prepared, and media is saying Wilder is the one who's not ready for the moment because he's silent, because he's focused. Meanwhile, Fury's doing all of this. Who pulled out the fight? Who pulled out? Answer the question. Who pulled out the fight? Same day, Bob Arum, Fury's promoter, says Fury is fully vaccinated. Same day as the press conference, right? 2 weeks after that, Fury is getting hell in sparring. The same guy who wasn't focused, getting hell in sparring, getting beat up. We see his face all bruised up. 4 days after that, Fury tests positive for the Rona. 2 days after that, word gets out that Fury tests positive for the Rona and the fight is postponed. By the way, y'all said that when Wilder accused Fury of cheating, y'all wanted proof. Y'all wanted proof. Y'all like, oh, show proof, show proof, show proof. Same people that said show proof. You say Fury is sick, show us proof. Show us proof. Show us proof that he tested positive, right? And then within the same week, I feel bad for me. Dude is resurrecting. Like, oh, he's negative now. Now he can hug fans, kiss them on the cheek, go buy luxury cars, no mask, no quarantine, no social distance. And yet we supposed to say, get well, champ. No, we're here to protect the integrity of the sport. So Fury is fine today. And he's seen around Vegas and he's seemingly okay. After fans and networks and fighters were prepared, we were all prepared for the biggest event of the year. Fury pulls out of the trilogy fight, the third fight against Deontay Wilder, with only 2 weeks left. With only 2 weeks left. I don't believe that he just pulled out because of COVID. I believe he pulled out because out of these 10 reasons, I believe there's 4 that he really pulled out for. I believe that he was focused on AJ. I believe that he didn't like being forced to fight Wilder because he didn't want to fight him at all. I believe that him being advised, I believe his father's voice, his father saying, don't do this right now. I believe that being advised by his father to give up the belts and definitely don't fight Wilder played into it. And I believe that getting like beat up really bad, getting the brakes beat off of him in sparring, I believe that those 4 reasons are the straws that broke the camel's back. He was focused on AJ. He didn't want to fight Wilder in the first place. Then he got forced to. His dad in his ear saying, whatever you do, don't fight Deontay Wilder. And then when he does prepare to fight Wilder, he's like getting hurt in sparring. It seems that now there are too many coincidences. These are the facts. This is the timeline. Let me know what conclusion you come to after all the evidence and what you see from your perspective. Feel free to leave comments on this video. Do like, subscribe, and share this video. We're continuously looking to grow the channel. Let me know what you guys think. And we'll be back next week with another live show. We have a lot of stuff to talk about. Jermell Charlo is fighting this weekend. Excited to see how that happens. Him and Brian Castano are fighting for the undisputed junior middleweight championship of the world, 154 pounds. Excited to see how that turns out. We got a lot of boxing to cover. This was the Fury Wilder 3 full Poke the Bear investigation. Thanks for watching.